Welcome to the channel, guys, where we dive into the minds of those shaping the future of technology and entrepreneurship. Today, I am genuinely thrilled to have Ed, the innovative mind behind Vext, joining me for a very informal fireside chat. Ed's journey into AI and technology is nothing short of inspiring, and I can assure you, you will have a ball of a time during this interview. And I can't wait to explore his insights, experiences, and the vision driving the project. So let's get started. First off, Ed, really thank you very much for joining us today. Your journey into the forefront of AI and other projects like Vextap is incredibly fascinating. I have gone through the project. I have done a video for my channel, and I'll drop the link to that video again in the chat. Was thoroughly impressed by what you have created, and I'm sure that it will evolve more. Can you please share with us how first you got interested in AI? What's your educational background? How did you exactly get into this?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, appreciate you having me on to the video. This is incredibly refreshing. So I just wanted to thank you that first. So first of all, my name is Ed, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Vext. So to kind of quickly give you this high-level introduction of what we do is that we wanted to create this developer platform for developers to easily build their LM pipeline. But we can talk about more down the road. But back to your questions, Fahad. So when we started this, it was basically an internal pain. Like we can all pretty much remember when OpenAI first introduced ChatGPT, right? And everyone just said, "Oh my God, this is some really cool technology and actually useful too." And ever since, a lot of businesses are experimenting with different, AI APIs with LM APIs, right? And internally, we decided to. At the time, I was working for a company called Analytics. And at the time, we decided to try to experiment to use LM to combine with the internal knowledge base and provide it as like a sales toolkit for our partners, like in Singapore and Hong Kong, because Analytics has a very huge offerings, and it's also a good thing, right? Because have a lot of things to sell, but for partners, it can be very difficult because you have a lot of different offerings and it requires a longer time to do training. So we decided to kind of use that technology to provide as sort of a sales kit or sales co-pilot, if you will, for our partners locally. And when we presented the AI application we created, those partners came back to us to say, "This is really cool. This is actually really useful. But however, can you provide me the framework behind this sales kit? We would really like to use it and resell it to our customers locally." And then it was that moment that we thought, "Oh my God, this is actually something, there's actually a void to fill in this sector." A lot of businesses, they do have this need, but they don't really necessarily have the platform or tools to, put together an AI application in a very easy fashion. It all requires a lot of intensive coding, right? Right now, even right now, it's also the case. So it was that moment in 2023 June. We started this venture along with my co-founder Ryan. He's also at the time the CEO of Analytics, which is the company that I mentioned earlier. So now he founded this company along with me, and we went on to this journey, tried to provide this platform to, provide this easier way for developers to build LM pipelines. So that's kind of like how we came about. And for my experience, I was born and raised in New York City, and I went to school in obviously still in the United States. But my background is actually quite a bit of a different one. So as opposed to like most founders, like they're more into the technical background, I'm actually in the business background. So my major is business administration, and for most of my career, I'm actually in the growth / product sector. So I'm, manage a lot of products and manage a lot of growth aspect of the whole, for a lot of tech startup companies. So that kind of intersects between product and business, right? Because as a product person, you have to have some knowledge, some degree of knowledge into the product itself and how the market's going to react to your product. So you got to have, pretty good knowledge in between product technical and the business part. So with that, I've been working in the Bay Area for over 10 years, San Francisco Bay Area, and then came to Taiwan in 2017 and started this whole, also work in a lot of different tech companies. And eventually in 2023, which is last year, we started this company. It's kind of like how everything came about.
Awesome. So, look, I have so many questions now. So you have spent time in New York City, then in West Coast of US, and then to Taiwan. So now you're based
Yeah.
in Taiwan. What's the biggest difference you have felt in terms of the technical scene?
I think that is a great question. So I think for when working in the United States, and I'm going to emphasize my experience in the Bay Area because that is where I spent the most time in, right? So I think in the Bay Area, it's a pretty standardized, like the Western technology kind of culture, right? Everything's very open. It's very product driven. It's end results driven, and everything's like the imagination of what a startup looks like. You immediately will have this image of companies in the Bay Area, right? Or some still call it Silicon Valley. Now for Taiwan, it's very different. Taiwan, because of the size of the country, and usually there's not a lot of huge enterprise companies locally. So a lot of times when, especially in the tech scene, it's trying to solve some very niche, very small problems, as opposed to like American companies. They're tackling a larger problem, like a wider, a bigger problem. So over here, we're not seeing a lot of startup companies doing, SaaS companies. Like there's not a lot of new startup SaaS companies over here because there's simply no needs, and also because of the language barrier. The official language over here in Taiwan is Mandarin, so naturally, it is harder for startups companies over here to go across the border to like a tier 1 market, like in Singapore, in United States, or Australia, right? So usually startup companies, when we're talking about in Taiwan, is mostly for domestic market, and it kind of forms into its own culture and its way of doing things. So in terms of like the stack, the tech stack, the software, and even the the processes that they're using is very different from United States and Singapore, some of the tier 1 markets. So that's kind of like the overall difference I've noticed initially, and where you can call it culture shock, which took me some time to adjust. But right now for Vext, most of our developers are locally here, also in Taiwan. I'm trying to implement that mindset and that culture to the team so that more conversations and dialogues and can happen, and the product that we create and the thing and the goal that we are trying to achieve can be more well connected to the global market.
Makes sense. So on that point, it's quite interesting that you're in Taiwan. I'm in Sydney, Australia at the moment, and the markets are quite small if you compare them to Silicon Valley, or even in the Europe. If you compare them to the European markets, and I feel that Australian, especially the markets in Sydney and Melbourne, they are more similar to what you have in Taiwan or maybe in Singapore, and they are more like regional rather than global scale
Right.
companies. So I think that is one of the things which I have always felt here in Australia. But still, I think the way this AI is progressing, one thing I'm very interested in learning from you is that as the head honcho of this Vext app, which is an AI startup specializing in LLM pipeline, could you go into a bit more detail as what exactly this Vext IP does?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you asked. So, like I mentioned earlier, our Vex is a development platform trying to help developers to simplify and shorten the LLM application development time, right? So at the core, Vex, our mission is to enable AI transformation. That's kind of like our model. So essentially enabling more businesses and users to create their AI or LLM apps more efficiently, right? And to do so, we firmly believe that this requires a couple of things to happen and at the same time. So first of all, your platform has to have usability, meaning the product or the platform has to be intuitive and can be easily used from the get-go. This is basically product design, right? Now, number two, scalability. How can businesses where users create multiple pipelines within just a couple of minutes versus having to rewrite the code for every new pipeline created, right? Now, number three, which is, I think, personally the most important thing, and the whole philosophy of Vext, is that how we can create and help streamline the LM ops process. So from pipeline design, deployment, to monitoring, how we can make it so it's entirely streamlined within one pane of glass. Without using 100 other different services, it's really the key, right? Because right now we're so cluttered with so many different apps, so many different tools. How we can really simplify that is really, really the key. Now, most of the solutions on the market can kind of tap into some parts of what I mentioned, but not many are crossing the vertical, providing a more streamlined experience. It's like some parts are just really focusing like hyper focused and or siloed in a particular part. But we wanted to kind of really, bring things together just so that it's easier for businesses. So traditionally, the process of model to prompt management kind of looks like, you've selected a model, like an LLM model, right? Either closed source or through a vendor like OpenAI, or open source like using a library or a marketplace like Hugging Face, right? Your next step is to deploy it and integrate it with any prompt or LM framework like LangChain. Now, if I want to do analytics, maybe you have an app, maybe for example, Langsmith or other open source, closed source solutions. Not to mention, you have to find a way to connect them together, and while have to worry about the deployment and maintenance down the road. So it's just a bunch of moving parts, right? And small pieces that are not highly productized yet because it's a very young market and very young sector. So everything I wouldn't say, I don't think there's any companies or products that can kind of claim that they're highly productized at this time. So they usually have very poor documentation. Now, for us, we want to solve that situation. As you were trying out the platform, and great video, by the way, was really refreshing to see a first-time user navigating the platform. You can kind of tell that it's a streamlined design that aims to make this whole LM ops or LM pipeline design as painless as possible to really address the pain I mentioned earlier.
Makes sense. Thanks. So no, definitely. I mean, when I tried it out, it was, and that is what I try to do on the channel, that whenever I'm reviewing a product, I try to not to use it before so that I could get the first hand experience, not only for the users, for myself. And also it helps out, the innovators like you who could improve it further, so that, because one thing I can tell you straight off the bat is that if a user doesn't like it first time, there is a very high chance he or she won't come back, because that is the nature of our ecosystem in IT. It is same like website. If the user interface and user experience is not good enough, you know it's very hard to get them back. So yeah, that was the
Absolutely.
whole reason. But I believe that Vexap's interface, I think it is really unique and very, very easy to navigate. And I'm not just saying
Appreciate
it because I'm interviewing you. I think I'm being very
it.
honest there.
You can be
Now,
really brutal and honest if you want to.
yeah, I actually picked few of the things, and I, also said it in the interview. I hope that you didn't get offended or anything.
No, no worries, no worries,
Okay.
no worries.
Now, that's good. So, look, you're an founder, you're an innovator, an entrepreneur. Normally, if we read the stories about all of these innovators, and it just looks very cool, very sexy on the cover, that it's
Mhm.
such a cool guy. He's an innovator. He has a startup, but behind the scene, it's a lot of blood and sweat. It's very painful. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to burn your midnight oil. Can you please share some of your biggest hurdles or painful experiences during this journey?
Yeah, although it's not long enough because we just started last June. So roughly speaking, it's about, I would say maybe 7, 8 months or so. But I would say, I think the biggest hurdles that I have to overcome is to really to get our first customer. And in order to you would imagine when finding the first customer, it's all about trying to make sales and trying to get their buy-ins, right? But in reality, it's more about, first of all, where are they, right? How can you find these customers? Where are they? Even a better question, who are they? Like this process of trying to identify these folks that you're going after itself is already something that is a pretty difficult process. And I would even say that anyone can nail this process right off the bat, because there's a lot of trial and error involved during this whole thing. Now, that's the first part. Second, in order to, if you do actually find these people that you're going after, now getting them onto a call and then to get multiple conversations, following is extremely difficult, because in most cases, these customers will just, turn you off right off the bat, because they feel like, oh, this is not something I'm interested, or this is not something I need, and they're gone, right? Forever. Now, keeping the conversations going is really important. Get them intrigued, get them to even kind of get their hands on the product is even more so difficult. And on the next step is to really identify what are their pains, what are their needs, what are their requirements, and then back and forth, you have to do a little adjustments and even polish, or even sometimes recreate, or redesign the whole feature. And that's a lot of process involved. So I guess the short answer is just really finding the first customer. And some of the most important process that involves between are some, like what I mentioned earlier, are some of the most difficult parts that I've journeyed so far. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of things down the road. For example, trying to fundraise, try to, bring this company, grow this company, let's say 10x, 20x, etc. I think this is something more down the road that I'm expecting that's going to be also very difficult. But as a starter, as most startup companies are venturing into their first customer, I think this is going to be the most difficult part. And also, not to mention, you have to make a decision, right? If you're creating a product, how can you not, overly customize your product towards to one single customer, so that if it's overdone, then there's a risk of this product is not sellable to other customers. It's almost like fully customized, creating a customized product for one single customer. And how you should avoid that while balancing this product so that it's also still available for the mass, right? So there's also another balance that you have to be really careful about. And those are a lot of decisions process that we have to go through in the past couple of months.
Makes sense. Uh, and I'm quite intrigued about the name of your company, Vext. How did that come from?
Yeah, so Vext, there's a little fun story behind. So when we started this company, we wanted to focus on text, right? Like, this LM, large language model is merely focused on text. But we can all agree that, we're heading towards this multi-format, multi-modality, format, right? So we wanted to add a little twist in there. So not just text of Vext, right? Vext is also, you can argue it represents visual, like, vision, right? So you want to add a little like fun element to it. It doesn't really mean anything, but we just wanted to play around with the text and, add a little fun to it.
No, I think that's good. I think at least it means something, because if you look at the name Google, it doesn't mean anything. So, but
it's brand name. It's brand name.
I know. Yeah, but it's nice name. I think it's easy on the tongue, so it sticks. So that's good.
Oh yeah, and also just to reflect, to respond to what you said, and when we created this name, we want something that has only one syllable. And so that is easier to remember. So it's not like, there are 2 syllables, 3 syllables. Just one syllable is easier especially for Asian countries to remember.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. True. Um, so just staying on this Vext thing, what is your vision? What is your own vision for this product, this company, for the next 5 year, 2 years?
So that is a great question. It still goes back to our core, our mission, which is to enable AI transformation. Eventually, we wanted to help small, medium-sized businesses, or even hopefully venturing to a larger corporations in general, like businesses, right, to enable them into this AI journey. Because right now, most of the solutions, like mentioned earlier, it requires a lot of effort and research to even make them work. And not all of the businesses have the luxury and the resources to go into that field with a limited timeline that they can do research and development, right? So for imagine you're using LangChain, if you're familiar with that. It's almost like managing another product without proper documentation, which is going to be very painful for a lot of businesses and developers. So we wanted to kind of simplify that and to kind of expand from this idea of enabling AI transformation. So either it's going to be, for example, down the road, I don't really have a concrete, things that we will have to create 2-3 years later, but eventually, for example, maybe enable more businesses to access AI vision, enable more businesses to access AGI if that's available down the road. So our goal is to really going back to this mission, which is enable AI transformation. And we're starting from LLM, and we're not going to stop at LLM.
Cool, makes sense. And based on your experience leading this Vext step, what's the top advice you would give to other startups who are starting out?
I would say really don't create a product with APIs, and which it's kind of unfortunate nowadays. A lot of companies kind of just do this thin wrapping and kind of turn into or package it into an entirely new product. For example, when OpenAI API first came out, right? A lot of companies, they just add this interface and just using the OpenAI API kind of mimics the, for example, construction GPT or, finance GPT or, writer GPT, marketing GPT, like a lot of GPTs using the API. And then all of a sudden, when OpenAI announced the GPT-S feature, and they're all gone.
Yeah.
And that is the risk of, creating a company based on a thin wrapper, because you're going to be gone the day, when this vendor decided to do something that you're already doing. And you got to really differentiate yourself from a single API functionality. And you got to really, not just that, you have to really solve a problem. And combining those two, then you will probably have a startup company. And then you have to start validating your product market fit. And that's something more down the road. But I think the one single most important advice for most founders nowadays, especially now, is to don't create a product with a single API, because that's going to ruin your company right fast.
That's golden. I think that's awesome advice. Thanks for that. That's quite generous actually, because a lot of people are still building a lot of products. I see them every day. It is just a thin wrapper around that OpenAI's API.
Yes.
Or even AWS's own API.
Yeah.
So digressing a bit. So I know being a founder is a full-time job, but still, I'm sure you must have other hobbies. What do you do other than work?
So it's a little embarrassing to admit, but I'm a really an avid gamer, and I love the process of getting inspiration from it. I don't have much time to do that now, though, but I do try to squeeze in time to make work out of my head through gaming when possible. I also do also some other stuff. For example, like I scuba dive, I snowboard when I can, but a little mix of here and there just to really clears my mind and kind of put my brain into another reality, so that it's refreshing when come back to work. I have maybe some new inspirations and new ideas. So really just any activities that can put myself into another reality.
Cool. Which one is your favorite game?
Oh, I used to like to play a lot of League of Legends teamfight tactics. Not the League of Legends itself, the teamfight tactics that requires a little bit of strategy. But nowadays, I try to play, indie games, which is just any indie games that's on sale, just to kind of put myself into the environment.
Cool. Do you have any interest in crypto?
So crypto, I used to have interest in there, but I think the unfortunate thing in that sector is that there are too many opportunists, and it kind of ruins the whole concept of and the benefits of crypto, and which when the whole NFT crashed, is kind of unfortunate, and this whole thing kind of went away. So now, if you go back to the Bay Area, Web3 blockchain is kind of like a dirty word. You're not allowed even to talk about it, and all of the people over there are talking about AI right now. But
Yeah.
I still believe the very concept of crypto and blockchain. However, not the get rich scheme kind of concept.
Makes sense. So, and I won't finish this interview before I ask you about Taiwan, because that is one of the country that is for a long time on my bucket list to visit. So please tell us something about Taiwan, its food, its culture. If someone is coming first time, what places they should visit, what should they try out in terms of food?
Yeah, for sure. So, oh my God. So Taiwan, I would say, objectively speaking, right? First of all, I would say I love Taiwan. I love living here. It's one of, I think, I've been to so many different countries, and I can wholeheartedly say that Taiwan is one of the best countries to live among with some other different countries, like, for example, Portugal and all that. But I would say Taiwan is definitely on top of my list. And I would say, though, objectively speaking, it's not the best country to do sightseeing, because I would say there's not a lot of things or a lot of culture to experience, like, for example, versus when you're going to Japan or Korea, right? South Korea. But I would say, if you like food, I mean, this is the place to be. You have endless options to choose from. You have different kinds of food. You like Japanese, you like Taiwanese, you like Chinese, you like Cantonese, etc. You can find anything over here, and they're all very legitimate. So I would say, if you like food, you have to come to Taiwan. If you never come to Taiwan, you cannot say you're a foodie.
Awesome. Okay, that's a good one. Okay. Now, towards the end, um, if people want to reach out to you, how should they be? How can they contact you?
Yeah. So you can reach out to me through email, for example. You can email me ed@vextapp.com, so ed@vextapp.com, or you can go to vextapp.com and just, if you click on contact us or schedule a demo, I forgot what is the call to action text, but you can reach out to me through that, through these channels. For right now, because we're a startup, so I kind of manage everything. I'm wearing multiple different hats, so I kind of have to manage different functions. So reach out to me any form, any through LinkedIn, through website, or through directly email. It's all going to be me.
Awesome. And I will also drop the link to Vextep in the video's description. So if anyone wants to visit, they should. I would highly suggest it. But Ed, thank you so much for your time and for this wonderful product. Very, very nice meeting you.
Thank you, Fahad, and thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.